The main cause of foodborne illness is what's called pathogenic bacteria. These bacteria can't actually be seen, smelled, or tasted, and it makes them almost impossible to detect. Pathogenic bacteria get into food in a multitude of ways. Sometimes they might occur naturally in food, and they're just killed once the food's cooked to the right temperature. That's a good thing. Other times, pathogenic bacteria contaminates food when safe guidelines for cleaning hands, surfaces, and utensils aren't followed. The food service industry is an approximately $600 billion a year business. That's great news for restaurants, caterers, and food trucks, but it can be totally disastrous if food safety guidelines aren't followed. The first step in food safety starts actually before the food even makes it to be cooked. It starts with the food that's selected. So following some simple steps is going to help you ensure the food used is actually safe. When you're selecting items, look at the expiration dates. They're often labeled as sell-by or use-by dates. Now, food product dating isn't federally mandated, but more than 20 states do require it. Meat and poultry packaging shouldn't be torn or leaking, and frozen and cold foods should arrive that way, frozen and cold. Meats and poultry should be kept separate from other items like fresh fruits and vegetables. This helps to protect against cross-contamination. What is cross-contamination? Well, that's when harmful bacteria from foods transfer to other foods or surfaces. This is going to increase the likelihood of foodborne illness. The key for cold items is to follow what we call the 2-hour rule for all perishable foods. This means that perishable foods need to be refrigerated within 2 hours, or could be 1 hour if they're somewhere with a temperature above 90 degrees Fahrenheit. The FDA offers 4 simple steps to keep food safe and contaminant-free. Clean, separate, cook, and chill. Cleaning's that first line of defense against foodborne illness. This means you clean from your hands to the surfaces that food are prepared on. Always wash your hands for 20 seconds with warm water and soap before and after handling food. Or listen, if you're handling food after using the bathroom or touching other unclean surfaces, again, wash those hands. You're not sure how long that is? Try singing the Happy Birthday song twice. Make sure that you're wearing gloves if you have a cut or infection. Basic stuff, right? Your hands aren't the only things that need to be cleaned when handling food, though. Surfaces like cutting boards and utensils, these also have to be thoroughly cleaned with hot, soapy water after preparing each food item, before moving on to that next item. It's recommended that actually you use separate cutting boards for fresh produce and raw meat, poultry, or seafood. If that's not possible, cutting boards can be sanitized. You can use 1 tablespoon of unscented liquid chlorine bleach mixed into a gallon of water. Cutting boards should be replaced if they become worn or they develop deep grooves, which are like other surfaces for bacteria to grow and hide on. Paper towels are recommended for cleaning surfaces or wiping spills. If reusable dish towels are used, they have to be washed often in the hot cycle of the washing machine. Cleaning and sanitizing should be done before and after use or every 4 hours in a continuous use setting. It's recommended that a cleaning schedule or checklist be used to make sure this happens routinely. Other cleanliness guidelines associated with personal hygiene and food prep include not working with or near food if you're sick or if you have other conditions that could just otherwise contaminate the food. Examples include vomiting, fever, diarrhea, open wounds, boils or infected cuts, discharge from the ears, eyes, or nose, jaundice, and sore throat. Workers in the food service industry shouldn't wear any jewelry or other unsecured items that could fall into or otherwise contaminate the food. Protective clothing like headwear that covers the hair and ears, and also gloves, is recommended and may even be required where appropriate. Smoking, eating, and drinking should only be done in designated areas like a break room, away from areas where food is prepared or cooked. The Food and Drug Administration, or again the FDA, also recommends keeping raw meat separate from other foods at all times. So never put cooked food on a plate or another surface that just previously held raw meat or poultry unless it's been thoroughly cleaned with hot, soapy water. Also, never reuse marinades unless they've first been brought to a boil. You've chosen the food, cleaned everything, now you're ready to cook. First, it's important to thaw frozen foods safely before cooking. There's actually a method for this. The FDA recommends 3 methods for thawing: in the refrigerator, in cold water, or in the microwave. You might notice that none of these methods involve using the counter, as bacteria can multiply pretty rapidly at room temperature. The refrigerator is the safest way to thaw frozen meat and poultry, but this can take a day or two depending on the size of the meat. For faster thawing, it can be placed instead in an airtight plastic bag and submerged in cold water. Using cold water as opposed to warm or hot water slows bacterial growth and should be changed every 30 minutes during the thawing process. Following the manufacturer's directions for microwave thawing are super important. Meat thawed in the fridge can be refrozen, but meat thawed in cold water or in the microwave has got to be cooked immediately. Once your food's ready to be cooked, make sure it reaches a safe internal temperature. This will ensure harmful bacteria are actually destroyed. So the best way to check this is with a food thermometer. Do it scientifically. It gets placed into the thickest part of the food, not touching bone, which heats up at a different rate, gristle, or fat for the same reasons. Thermometers have got to be cleaned with hot soapy water just like before, every time before and after use. The safe temperature for foods is going to also depend on what the food actually is. So think about this. You have meats like beef, pork, veal, and lamb. Well, those meats should reach an internal temperature of 145 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, ground meats and egg dishes actually need to be 160 degrees Fahrenheit, while poultries and leftovers should reach 165 degrees Fahrenheit. The internal safe temperature of finned fish is 145 degrees Fahrenheit. As food cools, the danger of bacterial growth actually increases. The FDA recommends that you keep foods out of the danger zone in 2 important ways. First, don't interrupt cooking because this can encourage bacterial growth. If you aren't going to serve your food right away, just make sure to keep it at 140 degrees Fahrenheit or above using a warming tray, slow cooker, or chafing dish. Cold food should be kept at 40 degrees Fahrenheit or less to avoid that danger zone. Got it? Look, keeping foods cold is actually just as important as keeping them warm. Many perishable items like meats and poultry can be frozen for long-term storage. The FDA recommends a constant temperature of 0 degrees Fahrenheit or below. That's well below freezing. Finally, don't rely on appliances' built-in thermometers for accurate temperature readings. External appliance thermometers have got to be used periodically to ensure proper temperature and reduce the risk of bacterial growth. Temperature logs are actually also a great way for everyone to be on top of staying out of that danger zone. Also, be aware that different states have varied regulations on how often food temperatures got to be logged, but twice a day is a pretty good rule of thumb. Make sure that you do check your state's guidelines to make sure that you're following them, okay? Now, don't make your food service business a breeding ground for harmful bacteria. That's the big goal. Follow the simple, clean, separate, cook, and chill steps to protect customers and yourself. For even more protection, there are going to be some guidelines that you can follow for specific types of food. You ready? Let's dive into those.